In this lecture, we are going to learn how to work with static files. And if you're wondering what static files are, they're files that we want to be able to access anywhere inside of our project, and they're just always going to be there. For example, the stuff in the media folder, like those can change as, the information inside of the database changes and whatnot, where static files are going to be things like CSS files, JavaScript files, in our case, the resume or the picture of me out on the home page. So we want to go ahead and add those now to our project. So how do you add static files? It's a little bit of a process, but not too much. So on my desktop, I have a picture of me that I want to show up on the home page, and I also have a fake little resume here. I just opened up Pages on Mac, which is kind of like Microsoft Word, created a template resume and saved it as a PDF. So if you're looking to do the same, you can do that. You can also just go get this from the source code that I have for this project if you want to use the same fake one. But it'd kind of be cool if you put your own resume on there and your own image. The idea is that this is going to be a website for you, so it'd be cool to have that out there. All right, so the question is, where do we exactly put this inside of our project? Well, let's go ahead and look at our project here. Right, like, we've got our two app folders here, jobs, blog. We're not using the database anymore, so we can actually go ahead and get rid of that if we want to. We have the media folder where we're gonna be storing stuff. I think the best place to save your static files that are gonna be used site-wide, and for example, the resume, that's gonna be used site-wide, is inside of your project folder. So in this case, it's called portfolio, not the topmost project folder, but this one, and the same one where you have like your settings.py, and create a new folder in there called static. So we're going to call this one static, just like that. And then we are going to take our two files, my nic.jpg and resume, and we'll move them into this new folder. So those are now inside of the static folder here, and the way that we can access them, it's going to take a little bit of work here. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to open up, let's go back to Atom here, and you can see inside of portfolio we have this new static folder, and I want you to notice this. Notice that it's green because this is something that's been added to our repository and not committed yet, and you'll see why this is important. But go to your settings.py, and down here at the bottom, the same place that you had like the media root and the media URL, you can see you have a thing called static URL. So you also need to specify a static root, just like you had a media root. So I'm going to copy what we did for the media root, and let's bring these a little bit closer together. But instead of media root, this is going to be called, come on now, static root. And instead of the base path / media, it's going to be the base path / static. Great, so we'll go ahead and save that, and we're saying the URL for this should be /static. Again, you can change this however you'd like to be whatever, but I think this is great. There's nothing special about these two names being the same. Like, again, my classic example, you could call it eggs if you want to. All right, so we got that saved. Then we have to add one more thing, and that's where to look in the project for static files, and that's going to come in handy in our next little command here. So what we're going to do is we're going to type out in all caps, static files _ dirs, which is saying what directories should I look for static files in. And let's go ahead and do the hard square brackets. And inside of here, this is where we're going to pass our folder. So copy this os.path.join blah, blah, blah to get us to the base directory. And then we are going to do portfolio, which is the name of this directory here, / and then our static folder that we just created. So we'll go ahead and put that in, and then a / there. All right, so go ahead and save this. Now the next thing that we need to do here is open up your terminal, hit Control-C, and essentially what we need to do is we need to run a command that's going to search our project for any static file that might be out there, and it's going to combine them into one folder in our project. So we're going to do Python manage.py collect static, just like that. So go ahead and hit enter here, and you'll notice, boom, it found a lot of things that it wants to add to our project. So a lot of these are coming from the admin part of the site, right? But if we go up to the top here, I'm hoping to put it up top so that we can see it. You should see, for example, in my case, nick.jpg and resume.pdf, you're probably going to have different files there, but it's going to add these all to a new static folder. So just to kind of prove what's happening here, let's go ahead and look here inside of our project. At the very topmost level, there is a new folder here called static. And inside of static, we've got the nick.jpg, the resume, we've got all the admin stuff that stayed inside of its own admin folder, right? But everything sort of moved into this one central place. And because of our really cool get_ignore file, where we said only cancel out the local top level static folder, it doesn't add this to any git commits, but inside of the portfolio folder, this static folder, that does stay there because these are things that we want to add, right? And so anyways, I think that's really, really cool. So with this in place, all it's going to take now in order to use these is, first thing, let's go ahead and work on the home page, right? So I want to make it so that when I click on resume, that it actually goes to a resume. So let's work on, and that's inside of the jobs template, that home.html. Basically before you start using any sort of static file, you have to add this bit of Python code where you say curly bracket, parenthesis, or percentage signs, and inside of there, load space static files. So I promise you, you're probably moving forward going to have the frustrating point like I've had before where you just can't get the static stuff to work and you come back and you're like, oh, it's because I didn't have this load static thing. But anyways, you can put this wherever you want. It just has to be before you use the static files. So I kind of prefer to just put this up at the very top. Like I'll even just, I don't know, at the top of the head file here. This seems like a fine place to put it. But with this in place, we can go ahead and scroll down to our header here. And where we have the resume, instead of the href just going to the current page, that's what that pound sign signifies, we can actually go ahead and do curly bracket with percentage signs. And then inside of there, we can say static space, and then we just have to provide a name of what the static file is. And so in this case, ours was just resume.pdf, at least mine was. So I'll go ahead and save this. And now if we go to the home page, I'll reload here. Oh, and something's, oh, I never restarted the server. There we go. That should get us in the right place. Now when we reload the page, you'll see if I hover over resume, oh, this is Safari, it doesn't tell you where you're about to go. But if we click on resume, look at that. It takes me to my local resume, and I want you to notice the path on this. So it's /static/resume.pdf. So again, if we wanted to change, for example, inside of the settings, you know, all static folders in the URL sense should be after eggs. You know, they're still inside of this static directory. You know, we could come back, go to the home page, and when we click on this, it still shows the PDF, but you can see now it's at /eggs. So again, I show you that just so that you sort of understand the naming difference between those two, but more likely than not, you're going to keep them the same. All right, so that's great for the resume, but then the question becomes, you know, how do we get that image to show up? Well, pretty much the same way that we just got that resume to show up. So let's go back to our home.html. Okay, so after we've done, you know, inside of this Jumbotron, we've done all this stuff, let's go ahead and add a new image. So this image, it's got to have a source. This is where we're going to get all staticky here. We'll do our percentage signs and say static and give the name of our file, which is going to be nick.jpg. Excellent. So we'll go ahead and save that as an image tag, and let's go reload the home page. And there you go. That's pretty good. Now you might want to put some size restrictions on that. For example, this is looking pretty big. So, you know, if you ever wanted to, this is where you could maybe specify like, oh, the height, it's got to be like 300. And because this is a square image, I think it will work that it just auto scales. But anyways, feel free to play around with that and get your image to the right side. Okay. So now that you have that in place, we're going to have to update a little bit that, the static resume is going to show up on each of the nav bars. But we essentially have this website finished. Now there's some polish to do. For example, like if I click on blog, it doesn't actually take me to blog yet. And even when I do go there, if I click on a blog for the detailed post, it just shows the title. And so there's a couple of things to fix, but I'm going to put this all in one lecture, and I'm just going to call it the polish lecture. Let's just make this site pretty.